Adam Mankuta here with a little all-out blitz. Week 8 edition of Trade Bait and Stardom Situm will get you the names of guys you should go out and acquire this week in your trade market, as well as guys that you should start and sit as we approach Week 8 in the NFL. The first name on this list for me in the grab 'em category is Marlon Mack, along with other guys such as Cortland Sutton, Traquan Smith, and Josh Gordon, and we'll start right there with Josh Gordon. The Patriots receiver has really developed in his role so far with the Patriots. It's keeping on going up and up and up in terms of his snap count. He went to 100 yards this past week against the Bears. He almost scored a touchdown. He got stopped at the 1-yard line. They went to him on 4th down. Look, sky's the limit now for Gordon in terms of his productivity. Gronk's banged up. You have Sony Michel that's banged up. They might rely on the pass a little bit more. And Josh Gordon is building that chemistry with Tom Brady, which is scary for the rest of the league. Then you got Marlon Mack, who erupted this week for over 150 yards rushing and a couple scores. He's clearly the main back for the Colts. I think moving forward, you'll see him get a lot more of the target share as well. Nyheim Hines has kind of taken a back seat in that regard for the Colts. The Colts have played pretty well here, and I expect Mack to have a continuous role here and a big role moving forward, especially for you in the playoffs. He's a very solid running back too, or flex play. Then you got Jordy Nelson. The trade of Amari Cooper to the Cowboys really opens targets up for both Nelson and Jared Cook. Nelson still has been productive this season, scored a handful of touchdowns for the Raiders. Expect Cooper, who is getting 6 targets a game, for those targets to go Nelson's way, and Cook, especially in the red zone where he's a big play waiting to happen, just as here against Miami a few weeks back. So Jordy Nelson is certainly someone I would grab as a wide receiver 3 in all formats. Then some guys to trade. Especially on the top of this list are some hurt running backs that you're expecting to come back, including Dalvin Cook and Matt Breida, as well as underperforming David Johnson and Doug Baldwin. But let's start with Baldwin. He's the clear number 1 weapon in Seattle for Russell Wilson. However, with the offense pretty stagnant, he hasn't had many big games this season. People might potentially pay for the name and expect a second half breakout, but to me, Baldwin's a perfect opportunity to see if you can improve somewhere else and hopefully get someone to buy on that big name. Then you have Dalvin Cook, who we're still waiting on coming back from the injury. Latavius Murray has played extremely well. Maybe the Vikings decide to rest Dalvin Cook a few more weeks to hopefully get him healthy for the playoffs. But if he's going to be someone you trust, good luck to you. He's been banged up all season. We have no clear indication of when he's going to come back. Again, if he's someone you could move for an upgrade in another position, do it. Now let's dive into some guys you'd like to start this week, and on top of that list is Browns tight end David Njoku. He scored again last week against the Bucs. He gets another great matchup against the Steelers this week. He's a tremendous red zone weapon, as we see here against the Bucs. He's become one of Baker Mayfield's top 2 targets. I love Njoku in all formats, DFS, yearly, keeper, moving forward. Then you got David Moore. On the opposite side of Doug Baldwin, this guy's actually had made plays, including this spectacular catch in the back of the end zone in London a few weeks ago against the Raiders. He scored a bunch this season. I like him as a very sneaky DFS play this week and as a flex play. Now for some guys that you'd want to potentially bench this week, with Carson Wentz the biggest name on the list. But let's start with Mitch Trubisky. He's had good games now against the Bucs, against the Dolphins, and the Pats. Something tells me he's in for a little bit of a regression this week against the Jets. So to me, I would bench him moving forward, especially this week. Then you got Carson Wentz, and he had a great game against the Giants where he threw a handful of scores, then struggled against the Panthers. He's had a very tough matchup with the Jaguars defense that is due for a bounce-back performance. In this game's in London, so there's no familiarity but with Wentz and the Eagles overseas. So for me, it's just a very risky spot to play Wentz this week. For plenty more coverage throughout the week, check the FANTOM Fantasy Sports page, the Fantasy Forum. Like our videos on YouTube. Sign up to be a member of that Fantasy Forum and check out plenty more coverage, including the All Out Blitz, every Sunday morning, 11:45 Eastern, on Facebook.com/WatchPhantom. Have a good week, and we'll get ready for Week 8. Morning, everybody. Let's get right into the all-out blitz for Week 8. We're going to jump in a couple minutes early here. There's tons of questions already coming in. We got a game going on in London. Tons to get to. Tons of injury news. Tons of big news out there. We're going to dive right in right away with some of your questions. We're going to start. What's up, G? Saw you post up there. Thanks again to all of our partners out there, the Fantasy Football guys, the Football Alliance guys, Greg and the boys over at Going for Two and Fantasy Football Connect, all the other partners out there that we're working with. Thank you for spreading the word on such a great show. We love doing it every Sunday morning. We get everyone's advice. We get everyone's thoughts. We get everyone's lineups together, and we're going to go win that money this year, especially now in Week 8. Let's get that W. So we're going to start real quick. We're going to jump in. First question of the day, Golden Tate or Julian Edelman in PPR. I actually like Golden Tate here. I think the Lions have a big day against the Seahawks. Look, they're coming back home. They have to make a statement here. They have the running game now with Kerryon Johnson to keep defenses honest. I think Seattle obviously is in rebuild mode. Wouldn't shock me if they made a move here, potentially with Doug Baldwin to get out of his contract and move on as they try to rebuild. They have really, no established starter at running back. They have a couple good backs. They're on the decline. Maybe they upgrade, get some more picks. So for me, I think Tate is in a better matchup than Edelman. I think Brady tomorrow night's going to spread the ball around. Gronk's healthy. He'll play. Gordon's going to be obviously active, as we just mentioned in the waiver wire video from earlier in the week. You got Hogan, and with James White having such a big role with Sony Michel likely out this week, he's doubtful. I expect the ball to be spread around. Give me Golden Tate. Next question coming in. Uzomah or Ingram and Cobb or Traquan Smith or Paul Richardson, PPR. Great questions. I actually love Uzomah this week. Great matchup for Andy Dalton, that team. Ingram, look, that team is a hot mess right now with the Giants. I live in New York. I hear all the rumblings about how the locker room's completely turned over. The Washington defense has actually played really well this season. They've been very steady. Expect Alex Smith to kind of control the ball, control the clock. A lot of Adrian Peterson today. Look, Ingram's the better player overall. Uzomah's got the better matchup. Then you want to go to receiver, Cobb or Traquan Smith. I love Traquan Smith. He's a big play guy. We know that. We saw it on Monday night against the Redskins a few weeks back. Obviously, big play guy at college in UCF. To me, Randall Cobb coming back from that injury, what could we really expect? He wasn't playing well prior to that injury. So for me, I'm going to go with Traquan Smith. I don't love Paul Richardson either this week. He's too boom or bust. I think that Traquan Smith will get his targets this week in what should be a shootout in Minnesota between the Saints and the Vikings. Thad Allen, thank you for jumping in with a question, bud. And obviously, we're going to keep an eye on the Eagles game with the Jaguars at 17-12, early stages of the fourth quarter. Eagles up. Allison or Cobb? How about neither? I think both of them are really big injury risks. Allison's been the better player so far this season when both have been healthy. So for me, I'd go Geronimo Allison. If I have a better option that's out there on the waiver wire, maybe it's Traquan Smith, someone like that. Even Jermaine Kearse. Think about this for the Jets. I know Kearse put up a goose egg last week, a whole big 0 points. But you have no Terrell Pryor. He was cut. Rashard Matthews is getting up to speed. Robbie Anderson's doubtful. We're going to go through, obviously, the inactives as well as they come in. But for me, I would actually go Jermaine Kearse because I think, is going to get those targets from Sam Darnold. They're going to need to score points today in Chicago against that really good offensive team. So maybe Jermaine Kearse is someone. Drew Brees or Andy Dalton. Jeff, thank you to your crew as always. This is going to sound crazy, but give me Dalton at home. I think he has a huge bounce-back performance. That Bucs D is just dreadful. To me, you got to go against the Bucs every single time you can. Breeze wasn't great on the road last week against Baltimore. Maybe Minnesota shows up. Their defense finally shows up. I don't think you can go wrong here. I don't think the difference in points is going to be anywhere more than 3 to 4 points one way or another. I think each puts up a couple touchdowns. I just love playing quarterbacks at home against terrible, terrible defenses. So give me Dalton. Mike, good morning, bud. Hope all's well down in Florida. Vance McDonald, Kyle Rudolph, or Evan Ingram. Dale, great question. I'm going to actually, on this one, kind of go with Kyle Rudolph. And the reason why is, again, the Saints' defense is just not good. I don't like Ingram against the Redskins. I think he's too injury-prone. The Redskins have played solid defensively. I don't mind Vance McDonald in some formats simply because of the fact that they're going up against Cleveland. Cleveland gave up a huge game a few weeks back to Jared Cook out in Oakland. But to me, Rudolph's going against that Saints secondary and that linebacking core, which is just very beatable. So to me, I would go in that direction. Everyone, thanks again for coming to the questions. Araya, good to see you again, my friend. Winston or Goff? Really good question, because in this game, with Winston's playing, you got to remember something. They're going to be playing from behind, most likely, from start to finish against Cincinnati. So he's going to chuck the ball 45 to 55 times. He's going to have plenty of opportunities. But for me, how can you go against Goff? The Packers' defense has been susceptible to the pass all season long. You saw what Kirk Cousins did when they went into Lambeau Field. To me, I love Goff. I would take him 9 times out of 10, and the only time I wouldn't take Goff is if something was going on in terms of his wide receiver crew. I know Cooper Kupp's out this week, but they got Cooks. You have Gurley out of the backfield. You got solid weapons there. I'm going to go Goff. Josh, thanks for joining us. Matt Breida or Mike Davis PPR. This is going to sound really crazy because of the fact that Davis is not the starter, and he splits carries with Chris Carson. But Matt Breida is not 100%. It was reported earlier this morning that he's not going to get his full complement of snaps. He's going to be on like a snap count. I can never play someone that's on a snap count. They are obviously going against an Arizona team that's just as bad as they are. I don't like either matchup that much for Davis either, but he's going to see an opportunity. And Josh, what I'll say is if you have other guys that are out there on the waiver wire that you could potentially slot in, drop them into this conversation. Let me know who they are. Maybe we could find you a better player out there, because to me, I don't love either of those matchups. Let's see. Next question. Mike, Hopkins or Janikowski? What are we talking? Kickers here? I mean, kicker questions on fantasy? Give me Hopkins. Sure. Let's keep going here. Pats D or Panthers D? Okay, this will be me, Mr. Pats fan, with my pom-poms cheering on. You cannot do any... If you're streaming this week and you could somehow play the Patriots defense, you're playing the Patriots defense. I don't care that the report came out this morning that LaShawn McCoy is most likely to play and he's most likely not going to be traded. I don't care. Derek Anderson's their quarterback. You saw what he did last week, even when McCoy was in there. Kelvin Benjamin has become a shell of his former self down in Carolina. I think the Patriots are going to completely humble Derek Anderson. I think this is going to be a 20, 25-point blowout in this game on Monday night. I think the Pats want to make another statement that they're back, that they're the class of the AFC. I just cannot trust Derek Anderson at all. And I do think that the Panthers D will give up some points today to Baltimore. I could see them giving up anywhere from 20 to 13 to 20 points, somewhere around there. I think the Panthers lose the game as well. I think the Ravens are a better team, better all-around team. So give me the Pats. I know, Mike, but come on. Kicker questions. What do you got here? Matt Breida, Mostert, or Tay Murray? You got to go with Tavius Murray. And the reason for that is, again, who are they playing? That Saints defense is not great against the run. I don't care what the stats have said. And with Tavius Murray the last 2 weeks, over 100 yards. He looks like the guy that rushed for 1,000 yards a few years ago. He's going to be getting the most carries of either of those two guys. Remember, Breida and Mostert are basically going to be splitting the time. They came out and said Breida's not 100%. He's going to play and gut it out. But how much is Mostert going to actually do against Arizona? We don't know. Give me the starter and the guy that's going to get all the snaps in Murray. Aaron Lawson, trade. I don't know what that means. So, Aaron, jump in. Trade. I don't know what that means. Give me some idea, and we'll help you out there. By the way, love your page. You got me a win with benching Ingram and playing Chubb. That's what we're here for, right? So we're going to do this every week. We do it every week. Thankfully, last week we had an enormous subscriber jump on here. I'm going to post content throughout the week. We're actually bringing on more partners, as I kind of said, to provide more content for everybody. So thank you to those out there that are watching, that we're talking to. I think that that's what makes this community really good, is that we can jump on here every Sunday morning and talk fantasy football and get you the wins that you guys all want. So lineup questions, trade advice, waiver wire, things. We're here for you guys, so help us out with that. Araya, Kerryon Johnson or Jordan Howard, full PPR. Also, side question, pick 2, Josh Gordon, Marvin Jones. Okay, so here we go. And Scott, I'll get to your question right away. I love Kerryon Johnson. The guy's been dominant so far this season for the Lions. He looks like the best rookie running back the Lions have had in some time, and they've had a few of them with Amir Abdul and some of those guys. I love Kerryon Johnson in this matchup. Jordan Howard is clearly now splitting time with Tariq Cohen. So for me, I'd go Kerryon Johnson. Pick 2, Josh Gordon, Marvin Jones, or the running back not selected. Josh Gordon, I think this guy, as I mentioned in that waiver wire video that just came on, he's the type of guy that as he's developing that rapport with Brady, he's just going to be sky's the limit there. I could see him having a few deep balls tomorrow. And remember something, if Sony Michel sits and they're actually going to start Kenyon Barner, the guy that used to play at Oregon and put up all those great numbers in college, they're going to be throwing the ball all over the place tomorrow night. So he's going to get a ton of targets. So I got to go Josh Gordon and then Marvin Jones. I don't love Jordan Howard moving forward, and I think that Jones with Kerryon Johnson. That's a good stack play also if you're playing DFS, because I don't love the Seahawks defense, and I like that Detroit offense, especially at home. Scott, sorry if you discussed already. Who picks up the slack for Robinson against the soft Jet secondary? Well, don't you love that, Mr. Jet fan? I would say Taylor Gabriel, I think, is one. Trey Burton's another. Look, Robinson's been good so far this season. He's gotten a few touchdown catches over the last few weeks, but he hasn't gotten a ton of receptions. He's spread the ball around, Trubisky has, to Tariq Cohen, to Anthony Miller, to Trey Burton, to Gabriel. So for me, Gabriel's the guy. He's been down the last few weeks. I think he picks up the slack, and I think against that Jets team, that terrible secondary that's banged up, I think Gabriel's going to have a big day, and I think Trey Burton's going to have a big day against your Jets. So good luck to you in that matchup. Should I play Redskins running back Chris Thompson? G, I really think that you got to wait this out and just see. We're going to go through the injury report, and I just checked there. Eagles 17, Jaguars 15. So right now the Jags are actually covering the spread. And tough breaker Tyronn Lue. We're going to jump to basketball for 2 seconds. He got fired. 0-6. LeBron leaves. The guy gets canned. I think that's a tough break for him right there. Joel, I see your question quick. Landry or Edelman PPR? Landry all day. Great matchup against Pittsburgh. I don't think Joe Hayden can slow down Landry. Hayden obviously used to play for the Browns before Landry was there. Give me Landry over Edelman. I just saw that real quick. Chris Thompson, Paul Richardson, active. So, Jay, to answer your question, Chris Thompson, absolutely. I'm going to play him. I think this is the type of game where Alex Smith is going to have to make some plays to win in the Meadowlands. It's a beautiful day in New York. Sunny, 50 degrees. Give me Chris Thompson. He's a great flex play. Love him in that spot if you can do it. Let's keep the question coming. Ron, how you doing, bud? Hope all's well. And Thad, I'll get to you next. Larry Fitz will play this week? No. I don't think Larry Fitzgerald's mama would play Larry Fitzgerald this weekend. I love him. He's a Hall of Fame player, one of the best players in Cardinals team history. I just don't see him as a fantasy asset anymore. There's got to be guys on your waiver wire with bigger upside, more potential. Josh Rosen has looked like a rookie since he got that starting job. So for me, Larry Fitzgerald's out. Give me some other players that are potentially available in your league, and I'll answer it, and we'll get you some more answers there. Thad, what's your thoughts on Martavis Bryant? I think this is the last chance for Martavis Bryant, and I said it earlier in the week in one of my shows. It might have been a DraftKings show I did earlier in the week. I think this is his last shot. The Raiders right now have Jordy Nelson, Jared Cook, and Martavis Bryant as their big play receivers. Carr likes to throw the ball deep, and something I'll get to in a second. The Raiders came out earlier today and basically said that Carr's their quarterback of the future. I don't know if that means they're just trying to drag the price up in terms of Carr's trade value. If Carr's there, I like Martavis Bryant because Carr's got that big arm that he could hit. Remember something like Derek Carr in college. Who was his big play receiver? And you probably don't know this, but it's Devontae Adams, the guy that's on the Packers at Fresno State. So for me, he went deep with Adams all the time. So I love Martavis Bryant because that's his game. If Derek Carr gets traded, it's stock way down for Martavis Bryant because we don't know who's going to end up being the quarterback in Oakland. So that's the answer there. Of course, Ron, keep the guys coming, Ron, too. I want to help you get someone else in your lineup for Larry Fitzgerald this week. Carlos, thanks for coming on. Good stuff. Pay attention, people. Kaylin, thank you. I love it. Yeah, I'll send the check in the mail. Keep those questions coming. So other things. Robbie Anderson, inactive for the Jets. So what I just mentioned earlier, Jermaine Kearse is one of those guys, Ron in particular. If Jermaine Kearse is on your waiver wire somehow or as a free agent, pick him up. Someone's got to get targets for the Jets. I mean, Kearse is a good possession receiver. He showed that in Seattle. He's been that way outside of last week for the Jets. With Robbie Anderson inactive, I actually like that a lot. Aldrick Robinson inactive. Khalil Mack active. Some other things. Eric Berry, inactive. So that's another stock up for Denver, and we'll get to one of those guys on Denver really soon who I love this week. Carlos, John Brown or Deshaun Jackson standard week? Well, actually, let's dive right in, and we're going to touch on the top stories real quick. Sorry about that. Deshaun Jackson's the number one thing on this list right now. This morning it came out that he wants out of Tampa Bay. Not a surprise. They're struggling. This guy's a cocky player. Diva wide receiver. With the trade deadline coming, there are some teams that actually, I think, would actually take a chance on Deshaun Jackson. I think Cleveland's one of them. They need a speed guy. They got their possession receiver in Jarvis Landry. They got their bruising tight end in Njoku. I actually like Deshaun Jackson there if Cleveland wants to send a pick. Look, Tampa Bay is going to want to rebuild here at some point. Winston may not be the answer. They got Mike Evans. Maybe they try to eat some of that contract, take his 5th or 6th round pick for Deshaun Jackson. So for me, to answer your question, give me John Brown this week. The guy's been really good so far. Had a big week last week when I doubted him, so, whatever there. Will Fuller out for the year. That's obviously news we heard earlier in the week, so big blow there. Obviously pick Kike Kute is an option there. Maybe they trade for a receiver like Devontae Parker of the Dolphins. That's a name I'd love to see them go get. Tension in Cleveland. Reports this morning, Todd Haley's on the hot seat with that Cleveland offense. They have those 4 great games in a row where they're playing terrible defenses. They lost their first one to Tampa Bay in overtime. Then you got Bosa, not close to a return. I actually think this benefits the Chargers because as many games as they win, he's just going to be fresher and fresher for the stretch run in the playoffs when he eventually does get back, if he gets back. Allen Robinson, as we just talked about earlier, he's out today, so get him out of your lineups. No trade for McCoy. That was another thing we talked about earlier. Buffalo doesn't seem that they want to trade their aging running back, which makes no sense. Go get an asset for the guy that probably can get maybe the Pats even, or a team that, depending on how banged up Michelle is, make a lot of sense. And then Carr, we talked about that long-term QB in Oakland. Let's get back to the questions. Ron, Emmanuel Sanders or Robert Woods? Look, I actually love this question, because you're talking about 2 guys on 2 different systems in 2 different types of matchups. I think that Packers-Rams game is going to be the best game of the day. Tons of points. So I like Robert Woods, but how are you going to sit Emmanuel Sanders against KC? Here's the reason. When you look at that game from a couple weeks ago, that Denver was up in the fourth quarter and then lost in the fourth quarter to Kansas City, Emmanuel Sanders actually didn't play that well. I think he gets his today, but again, I think this is one of those toss-up questions. I actually like Price Sanders against Kansas City. They'll be behind. They're going to have to throw the ball. He's been very productive the last few weeks. They may look to trade Emmanuel Sanders, build his trade value. I'd actually go Emmanuel Sanders, but you can't go wrong with Robert Woods. Next question coming in from Derek, and good to see you again, my friend. Tyler Lockett, Mack and Chubb, I need 2 standard league. Thank you. I love Marlon Mack against that Raiders team that's just terrible, terrible, terrible. So give me Marlon Mack for sure. And I actually like Nick Chubb here again. I was big on him last week. He came out, finally got that touchdown late in the second half, went over 80 yards. I like Chubb in this matchup against Pittsburgh. I think there are going to be points in this game. And again, I just don't trust Tyler Lockett. He's too boom or bust for me. You got Baldwin, who's going to get a lot of targets. You're going to get David Moore in the red zone. I just think it's too boom or bust against Detroit. So give me Chubb and Mack. Marvin Jones or Curse. Marvin Jones. Now, look, I know I've been talking up Curse this morning, and the reason for that is he's got an opportunity, but Marvin Jones is just an elite wide receiver. He's a great wide receiver 2 or wide receiver 3, obviously a solid flex play. The opportunity is going to be there for him with Matt Stafford, so give me Mr. Jones. Chris, good morning, my friend. How's everything? Let's drop some knowledge on everybody. Drop some questions. F it, bring Jackson to Dallas. G, you do not want Deshaun Jackson in Dallas, okay? You got his ego. You got Jerry Jones's ego. You got everyone's ego there. Let Dak get comfortable with Amari Cooper, and Beasley is the great second option there. Maybe you get something from Gallup. You got Zeke. Calm down. You don't want Deshaun Jackson in Dallas. You don't. Remember what he did when he dropped the ball on the 1-yard line in Dallas. I mean, that's the knucklehead type of play you're going to get there. One more. Brady and Joel. Don't talk. Not one more. Keep the questions coming, my friend. I'm here for another hour and change. One more. Brady versus Bills or Luck versus Oakland. Again, I think you're going to get the same kind of matchup here. I actually think Brady, as a Pats guy, is going to chuck the ball a lot tomorrow night. If Michelle is not active, which I don't think he will be, he's doubtful. Who are they going to really run the ball? James White, he's not a running back that's going to go in between the tackles. So I think they're going to spread the Bills out and just toss the ball all over the yard. But Luck, look, he's Andrew Luck, and he throws the ball more than anyone else in the league this year, which is quite impressive coming off that shoulder injury. So I'd go Brady, but you're going to do well with Luck as well. Keep the questions coming as always. Sean, Tyler Boyd or Alshon Jeffrey? Well, considering Alshon Jeffrey's playing already in London as we speak, and I can give you guys a score update, I'm guessing that he's probably locked and you can't play him, unfortunately, if you're waking up later here, a couple hours into this game. They're in the fourth quarter. Obviously, you're going to go Tyler Boyd, who I probably would have gone with anyway. Tyler Boyd in a great match against the terrible, terrible Tampa Bay defense today. So I would go Tyler Boyd. I know he struggled a little bit last week, but I think he bounces back, finds the end zone again. 24-15 Eagles. Now they are covering the spread. Let's see what Wentz did here. Zach Ertz for a touchdown. So, I was down on, Wentz early this week. I thought the Jaguars were going to actually show up here. But 3 touchdown passes for Wentz, he's certainly shut me up. And expect Blake Bortles at this point to just be left in London. I don't think he's coming back to the team. What else we got here? Tyler Boyd, Alshon Jeffrey. So let's go through some more stuff here. I think some top stories we could get into. Can the Rams stay perfect? Look, that juggernaut keeps going and going and going. It's really all Todd Gurley at this point with, Jared Goff. I'm throwing the ball to Cooks and his other receivers out there, especially Robert Woods. I think they get the job done here. This is the biggest underdog status that Aaron Rodgers has had in his career going into LA this week. But give me Aaron Rodgers and the Packers to not cover. Give me the Rams to cover and win the game. And we all remember this play from last year. What a great, absolutely terrific play by Stephon Diggs. Can the Saints get their revenge this week? I doubt it. I just think the Vikings have turned the corner. They got the best receiver in the league right now, and it's no joke. Adam Thielen really is the best receiver in the league. I touted him early this week. He's my number one fantasy receiver right now. I think the Saints take it home again. The Saints do not take it home. They will lose in Minnesota to the Vikings. Then you got tanking on both coasts, and I mean, this is getting really ugly really quickly for both the Giants and the Raiders. The Giants are trying to sell everyone. It doesn't appear that they're going to trade Eli Manning. I expect the Raiders to continue to try to trade people, especially Derek Carr. If he has a decent day today, look, if they could get a second or third round pick for him and want to go in a different direction, I could see it happening. Then we got, obviously, stock up guys, which we could talk about in a second. Thoughts on Herndon from Araya? Look, I think he's a boomer bust tight end. Someone's got to catch the ball, as we mentioned. I don't mind him, but if there are better options out there, I think Trey Burton's going to get a lot of looks today. I think Vance McDonald will have a decent day. I think Zoom is going to have a better day. I like Brait. I like the other tight end, O.J. Howard, better than Herndon. I mean, he's a name. He had a good week last week, but what else has he done during his entire career? So I'd steer clear. So how do you think Amari Cooper does here in Dallas? Gee, look, I love the move, and that's why you see him here on my stock up list. He was in purgatory in Oakland. Now he's going to a Cowboys team that wants him. When you are wanted by someone, whether it's in fantasy football, regular football, a relationship, you perform better, you are excited at the new opportunity. The Raiders weren't going anywhere. Their organization was in complete disarray. Now he goes to the Dallas Cowboys. To me, he's going to show up. He's now Dak's biggest weapon. I think this benefits Zeke the most out of anyone because now the defenses can't just load the box for him because Cooper's a good receiver. I think this also helps Jordy Nelson, as I mentioned here. And Phillip Lindsay's a guy I want to touch on really quick. With Royce Freeman out today for Denver, he's going to have an enormous opportunity against Kansas City. We know what James White has done to Kansas City and all the other running backs that have faced them to date. I think Phillip Lindsay has a top 10 day for the Broncos. He's not going to play as much special teams at all because now he's going to be the lead and true back there in Denver. I think he takes the job here and runs with it. So I'm really high on Phillip Lindsay. So keep the questions coming. Arizona defense or 49ers defense, thanks again. Aloha. Derek, are you from Hawaii, my friend? Aloha to you. I wish I was there. I haven't been there in 11 years. I got to get back. But give me the 49ers defense. And here's why. Josh Rosen has looked terrible so far this season. I think the 49ers offense, despite the fact that Breida has been in and out of the lineup with his injury, Mostert has actually played pretty well. And they've been able to move the ball. George Kittle is probably the best weapon there. I mean, look, David Johnson's there going up against San Francisco, but new offensive coordinator, Byron Leftwich of all people. So you don't know what to expect from that Arizona offense. Are they going to play well? Are they not going to play well? So I actually like San Francisco here. I would stay away from both of them. If you got another option there, let me know and we could try to go from there. So you're saying we're going to the Super Bowl. Here's the thing. You talked to me last week about and I talked to her about it, taking me to Vegas if you win your league this year. My wife said that's fine. I'm guaranteeing you if you want to take me to the Super Bowl, the Cowboys will not be there. It's going to be either the Rams, to me, the Saints, or the Vikings, one of those three teams. Maybe the Eagles if they get hot here. They're still up 9 here against the Jaguars as we get going. A couple more questions come in. Mike, Derek Carr to the Jags. To me, that is the perfect marriage. Now, are the Jags really, though, going to see this as an opportunity for this year, or are they going to see it for next year? The Jags defense was basically put together to win now. They saw that window. Jalen Ramsey's pissed, and that defensive locker room, they're pissed. They have completely lost faith in Bortles, and as I'm looking at it now, they're actually second and goal now in Eagles territory. I don't think they're going to come back and win this game. So if they now drop to 3-5 and have another loss here, 4 or 5 in a row, I don't think they're playing for this season, so they're playing for next season. If I'm the Jaguars and I'm Tom Coughlin in that front office, I am placing a call to Oakland and saying, what do you want for Derek Carr? Because I think he's going to be better and more polished for them moving forward than even if they draft someone or take a couple picks and move up next year and get a guy like Drew Lock or Justin Herbert or one of those guys. Derek Carr's polished. He's a playoff-ready quarterback. And with that team, you draft a couple more receivers, you get healthy with Fournette, maybe you rest him the rest of the season. To me, I make that call. Mike, I think that's a really good fit and a really good point. Tariq Cohen or Howard. Sean, I love Tariq Cohen. I think this guy is a perfect flex play. I don't like what I've seen from Howard in terms of the way he's kind of gone about this season. His role has diminished. I think this is the type of game, though, where Howard could get involved if they get a lead against the Jets. But again, the Jets' weakness is on the periphery in their secondary and linebacking core, where Tariq Cohen's going to be a mismatch. I called that out in my NFL Picks segment earlier this week, where I said Cohen is basically the X factor in this game. So I like Cohen a lot. I think he's going to get you 5-6 catches, especially in PPR. So that's my thought. Carr could be the president in the future. Exactly. The only teams to be out, and you love the poop emoji. My kids would love that, Mike. But Texans and Titans, I mean, you're right. And that's why I think that this is the perfect opportunity. Look, the Texans are good. The Texans will most likely win the division. They have the most talent on both sides of the ball. But if you're the Jaguars, where are you going for a quarterback next year? Teddy Bridgewater? You're not going to get Manning. I mean, that doesn't make any sense. Bridgewater really doesn't make any sense. I think you need a stable, big-armed quarterback that can complement Leonard Fournette. And that guy, to me, is perfect. It's Derek Carr or someone like that. So, Mike, as I said, brilliant point. Maybe you should have your own show. Derek from Maui. Love it, my friend. I haven't been there in 11 years, but I miss it. Wish I could go back. The Jaguars have kicked a field goal, 24-18, still not covering. We took the Eagles this week. So a little bit more here on some of the guys stuck up. Kerryon Johnson, one of those guys to me that has just been a sensational play so far this season. He has gotten a couple 100-yard games, busted out last week, dominated the Dolphins. Look, he can catch the ball out of the backfield. No Theo Riddick again today. So that's why I'm really, really high on him this week as well. Then you got Amari Cooper, who we just talked about. Looks good in that number 19 jersey. I believe that's Miles Austin's old number there, G. I think he'll have similar success. I think the Cowboys really found themselves something. I think at first was a lot to give up, but we'll see. Then I got Phillip Lindsay, who we mentioned. Look, he had a couple big games, couple big runs. The undrafted rookie out of Colorado. He's obviously very familiar from playing and growing up and going to school in that Denver, Colorado area. I love this guy this week. Some stock down guys, and here's where it could get really interesting. Eric Ebron's on this list, not because he hasn't played well, but Jack Doyle is back for the Colts. I think both guys will get involved because you got to remember something. Outside of T.Y. Hilton, who is Andrew Luck throwing the ball to? Chester Rogers? No. So, Eric Ebron, stock down a little bit. I wouldn't say he's the better tight end than Jack Doyle. I think Jack Doyle is the better receiving tight end, but he's stock down. All the Packers running backs, look, Aaron Jones hasn't done the job. Williams hasn't done the job. Montgomery hasn't done the job. Rodgers needs a running back, and that's why I've been saying for a while now, if they win today, and they somehow go on the road and beat the Rams, and they're, getting that momentum, they got to go get a running back somewhere. I don't know who that running back is. I was trying to rack my brain on who it is. I would have said Latavius Murray if Dalvin Cook was healthy. I would have said TJ Yeldon if Fournette was truly healthy. Maybe Yeldon's still an option there because now they got Carlos Hyde, but they need a running back badly. And Dalvin Cook, Royce Freeman, those are two guys that obviously are banged up, missing the week. And then Deshaun Jackson, look, we don't know where this guy's going to get traded to potentially, or what his mindset is right now. So for me, I'm going to go stock down on him. And look, Cook is a big one to me that gets really lost here, where this guy was a huge bust so far this season. He came back, everyone was excited to have him back in their lineups, drafted very high. And we don't know when he's going to come back. Latavius Murray's been obviously very good the last few weeks. They're not going to rush Cook back, so if there's ever a way that you could potentially trade Dalvin Cook, do it. And then Freeman, again, I think this is the game where Phillip Lindsay is actually going to bust out a lot and do really big things. So to me, I would absolutely look to trade Freeman if you can, maybe to a Lindsay owner that needs a handcuff, but I think I'm pretty down on him this week. We'll go to some stardom guys too. G has Nick Foles gets traded before deadline. Look, I don't think he will. Look, they've already played the first 8 weeks now with him as their backup quarterback, and we saw that one injury can derail your entire season potentially, as it did last season. So I don't think that there's a team out there that's going to pay the Eagles a second or a third round pick for Nick Foles that's desperate right now. The Jaguars don't look like they're going to win this game today. That's the one team that you could consider. Looking at the other playoff teams, do they need quarterbacks? Baltimore? No. Pittsburgh? No. New England? No. LA Chargers? No. Kansas City? Obviously not. Dallas? No. Philly is obviously there. Washington? I don't think they're going to move off from Alex Smith until probably next year. The Vikings? No. The Lions? No. I mean, there's really no other fit out there with a playoff team. Houston? No. And LA, obviously. The Rams? No. So, for me, I don't really like that move. I don't think Foles is going anywhere. That's just my 2 cents. I don't see it happening. I think he's such a luxury for them to have that I would obviously keep him there. But keep the questions coming. We got about 50 minutes left, which is great. Keep all the questions coming in. We've done a lot here. We talked about that. John Ross out again for the Bengals, so I think Mixon, Boyd, Green have cake matchup this week against Tampa Bay. I try to get as many Bengals as my lineup as possible. I think Dalton has a huge day. The third string running back for Tampa Bay has been ruled out. I don't think that's no surprise there, no big deal there. James Washington, the rookie from Oklahoma State, congrats to them on their huge win against Texas last night. He's out today, so more opportunity there for maybe Ryan Switzer or Haywood Bay or Justin Hunter, but no one that you're playing in DFS. So that's there too. We could go through some stardom guys now. Baker Mayfield, obviously, against the Steelers. I think he's going to have a nice afternoon. Tyrod Taylor did in the season opener in that 21-21 tie. Andy Dalton we mentioned, so Boyd, Green, and Mixon. We mentioned Kareem Hunt is another guy. Look, he's gotten involved in so many different ways for the Chiefs the last few weeks against the Pats. Then again, last week, to me, he's going to have a cake matchup this week against Denver, who just has been decimated. But Jack Doyle's an interesting name that I want to throw out here. Look, last year, he became a really good target for Jacoby Brissett, as we see here. He's just a very solid, moving the chains type tight end. I think they're going to run all over and pass all over the Raiders today. I think they're going to probably put up 30. He's just one of these solid tight ends in a year, though, where Delaney Walker and Ingram and Olsen and all these guys have been banged up, even Gronk last week. Doyle coming back is a nice asset. He's a quiet play. Mac attack out. Araya, who we got there? Is that breaking news from Araya? Mac attack. Are we talking about Marlon Mack or are we talking about Khalil Mack? That's a big one. I have not seen that come across yet, so if you want to just drop that in here, let us know. But that would be big news one way or the other for either one of those people being out. And yeah, I mean, Mike, to your point, John Ross has just been out. So again, perfect segue here. Khalil Mack out. That doesn't shock me, and we'll kind of go into that really quick. That doesn't shock me here simply because of the fact that the Jets are just not that good defensively right now. And I do believe that the Jets don't have the offense there. I don't think they need Khalil Mack. They wanted to get him right. So I don't think this is a huge stock down game for the Bears defense. I still think it's a pretty good opportunity for the Bears to really reinvent themselves on the defensive side of the ball, where they got decimated by the Dolphins and the Patriots last week. They allowed that kick return even to Cordell Patterson. I think this is a big bounce-back game for the Bears defense. They sit Khalil Mack out this week. They get him healthy. So that's a great piece of news. Ron, Breeze, or Mayfield? Ron, it's a really funny question. I love it, and I think it's a very fair question to ask because of the matchups. But one of my credos in life, especially for fantasy, is play your studs. As much as I love the matchup for Baker Mayfield against Pittsburgh, this is his first matchup in Pittsburgh. The wind will be howling. You got Drew Brees, the future Hall of Famer, against Minnesota. Game indoors. Give me Brees. He's going to put up his numbers. He's going to throw the ball. His weapons are better. I like Drew Brees a lot more than Mayfield this week. I'm playing Mayfield in my league because I think he's got the best matchup for me, but I think Brees has a great matchup this week. I think he's going to put up points. I think Baker will as well. Look, Baker Mayfield almost was on the verge of a huge day last week. He got stopped on a QB rush from the one last week, or else his day would have been even better than it already was. For me, I would actually go Drew Brees. So that's very good question, though. Lauren, good morning. Hope all's well out at your crib over there. Keep the questions coming in. We are about 45 minutes from kickoff. The game going on in London is still 24-18. Is that what we got here? Yeah, Eagles play under review on a first down. So that's an interesting one. Some big names, though, this week that I would keep an eye on. Big Ben, good matchup against Cleveland. I think him and James Conner are going to have a big game against that Cleveland defense. They got lit up by Oakland a few weeks ago. Even Tampa Bay moved the ball pretty well last week. I like Big Ben in this spot. He's probably a top 8 quarterback this week. You got to love Antonio Brown, obviously, but James Conner, remember what he did. His best game of the season was that first game of the season against Cleveland. He's now more established in that offense for Pittsburgh. I like that about him. He's now 8 weeks into it. Le'Veon Bell's not back. The team believes in him. He's done really well. I love James Conner this week. He's got a really good matchup. Let's keep the questions coming. Now it's 4th and 13 for the Eagles, so they're going to be punting here, giving the Jags the ball, the chance to come down the field and take the lead and win it, which would be very interesting news for Blake Bortles and that team. So let's keep the questions coming, obviously. Denver. We'll talk about Denver real quick. I love Lindsey. I like Emmanuel Sanders, Demaryius Thomas. Would not shock me this week, trade deadline on Tuesday, if one of Thomas or Sanders is traded. I think the Broncos realize that they need to rebuild. They need a new quarterback. They might have a good tandem at running back right now with Freeman and Lindsey. I think they keep one of those wideouts and see what they could get for the other one. I think teams like Cleveland that are looking for a wide receiver, obviously Dallas maybe if they want to add another receiver to their team. Maybe it's Houston now that they lost Will Fuller for this season. Teams are going to be looking for skilled players on teams that are done, right? So that's teams like Oakland that have been, selling off pieces. And I think this is another team that could potentially be doing it. So let's keep the questions coming in. We got another 45 minutes, as we said. We also could jump into some game picks. Let's jump right in there. So we had Philly minus 3.5. They're holding on for dear life as we speak. Up 6 in the fourth quarter with about 5 minutes ago. So we got the Eagles there. I like Cleveland in Pittsburgh by 8.5. I don't think the teams are differed by more than 9 points. They tied first week of the season. That was with Tyrod Taylor, not Baker Mayfield in there. Have the teams changed that much over the first 8 weeks of the season to have about a 9-point spread? I don't think so. So give me Cleveland plus 8.5. Kansas City minus 10. I think this is a no-brainer. I just do not see them slowing down. I don't see Denver slowing down Mahomes again, especially at home in Arrowhead. I think this is a 15-point game for the Chiefs. I like the Bears. 6.5 is a spread. I got earlier in the week. I think it's up to 8.5 now. Look, the Jets are decimated at wide receiver. The only real guy healthy is Curse, who I'd play in DFS because I think the opportunity is going to be there. So for me, that's one that I would absolutely go with. We'll stop here and get more questions. Who do you think the Pats are targeting with the recent news? They are looking to add wide receiver with a high draft pick. I want to see how this plays out. And this is the reason, Araya, is because is Gronk going to be part of this team next year? I think if they win the Super Bowl this year, and again, we're 3 months away from the Super Bowl. I think if they win the Super Bowl this year, things are going to change. I think Gronk will retire. I'm being honest, and as a Pats fan, I think Gronk will retire. I think Brady will give some serious consideration to retiring, because if he gets his 6th, I think it could happen. So if he retires, if Gronk retires off a Super Bowl, what do? They obviously want to get a quarterback. But for me, if they don't win the Super Bowl, those guys are back. I also don't see them going high for wide receiver. They very, very rarely draft that wide receiver in the first, even the second round. So I think they'd address the defensive side of the ball, which has been their weakness, obviously, for the last few years. I think they'd probably go in free agency and try to sign a receiver or draft like an underrated type of receiver out of the college ranks, not a stud at wide receiver for that. Tyrone, what do you think of Carr versus the Colts? Look, perfect example of why I think Carr is going to have a solid second half of the season is they are taking on the Colts today with what running game? They got Jalen Richard, who's more of a PPR receiving running back, and Doug Martin, who's kind of failed to impress in Tampa. Look, Gruden is a Tampa native. We all know he coached Tampa, so he likes Doug Martin. He has a relationship from previous, time being down in the Tampa area. That's why he brought him over. Lynch is out for a while. I like him. I like Jordy Nelson. Nelson's had a pretty big couple weeks here. He scored a bunch of weeks in a row before their bye. I do like Jared Cook as a weapon. Martavis Bryant's a deep weapon. I like Derek Carr this week as a very cheap option in DFS and in weekly leagues, depending on your matchup, because that Colts secondary, we know it. From the Patriots game a few weeks ago, even Sam Darnold lit them up a few weeks ago. I like Derek Carr in this matchup, especially at home. So that's not a bad one. They want to trade for a wide receiver right now. Well, I don't know who they're going to go get and where that guy's going to fit in the right way because of this. They have Hogan. They have Edelman. They have Gordon. They use Cordero Patterson. I don't know where, and they have obviously Gronk. So unless Gronk is truly banged up, I don't see them making that move. Look, the move I would make if Gronk is hurt is call the Colts and say, look, you have 2 solid pass-catching tight ends. You got Ebron, you got Doyle. Give me one of them. Toss them a draft pick. And I know that they've given up a draft pick for Josh Gordon. They've given up a draft pick for Danny Shelton. For me, I don't know who they're going to go high for. If they go and get Emmanuel Sanders, that's a great move. But to me, they got to strengthen up their secondary. Maybe get another running back in there. That's the position that I'm worried about on the offensive side. Not tight end if Gronk's healthy, and not receiver, it's running back. I love Sony Michel and I love James White. But Michel is so injury prone. He's had knee problems throughout his career in college and now. And we almost lost him for the season last week. It looked really bad. I'd go try to find a running back before I'm going to adjust the wide receiver position. I like Carr with Seth Roberts today. Yeah, I think that's a pretty fair stack, Tyrone, simply because of the fact that, look, Roberts is a big play guy as well. At the times where you don't think he's going to show up, he's going to have 50 yards and a touchdown. And again, all those targets that Amari Cooper took, off of, the Raiders roster right now, who are they going to go to? It's going to go to Nelson. It's going to go to Roberts. It's going to go to Cook. I don't mind that at all. I actually like that a lot. Cohen or McCaffrey Standard League. That's really interesting. And I'm gonna go because it's standard. I think that the best person for that is probably McCaffrey, and here's why. I think both of them are going to get their touches, but if you're telling me it's standard, no PPR, I think Cohen's biggest asset is his receptions, but then McCaffrey also will get his. I think McCaffrey's a better all-around player. He'll probably get more red zone looks. To me, McCaffrey has a better chance to find the end zone. I know it's a tougher matchup against Baltimore than him against the Jets, but I like McCaffrey. Again, this comes down to one of those how do you bench your studs type of things. McCaffrey you drafted most likely in the first or second round. Tariq was probably a 10th or 11th round pick. Play McCaffrey, or else you'll probably end up regretting it because McCaffrey will probably have a huge day. Ryan England, good morning. Hope all is well for you, my friend. Keep the questions coming there. We'll go finish up with these game picks on the first screen. We got Washington minus 1.5 at the dysfunctional Giants. We got Detroit -3 against Seattle. I just don't like Seattle traveling across the country to face a Lions team that is as potent as they are. Give me Matt Stafford and those boys by at least a touchdown. I like Cincinnati by more than 4 against Tampa. This is one of those teasing games that Vegas throws out at you. And they're basically like, we want you to take Cincinnati. There's some reason that we want you to take Cincinnati. I'm going to buy it, and I'm just going to say, okay, something's going on. I just don't like Jameis on the road. I like Dalton against that terrible defense. I don't know what the reason for this being so low is, but I like Cincinnati. Baltimore, I think they're going to beat Carolina. They're just a more talented team on both sides of the ball. I trust Flacco even more than Newton. That's going to sound crazy and bananas. Who's won a Super Bowl? It was Flacco. Who made that huge throw in Denver? Flacco. What Cam Newton ever won? Nothing. So to me, give me that. Indianapolis, I like Indianapolis at Oakland. I just think they're more talent on both sides of the ball. No dysfunction as of right now. And then give me San Francisco in a game no one's going to care about, San Francisco and Arizona. Eagles, 20. Looks like they're going to take a knee here. 24-18, 36 seconds left. So it does look like the Eagles are getting us off to a 1-0 start here with our picks. Tyrone, great question. Lindsey or Howard? You just kind of must have tuned in because for me, this is a no-brainer. It's Phillip Lindsay all day long. No Royce Freeman. Devontae Booker runs like he is in quicksand to me. I think the Chiefs are obviously susceptible to those pass-catching running backs, which is what Lindsay is. He's going to get all the carries. You're taking him off special teams duty. So for me, it's going to be Lindsay all day today. And I think he actually has a really big game. He's in all of my DFS lineups today because his salary is actually reasonable. And Howard, I don't love the matchup against the Jets. I think Cohen's, eaten into his, his reps this season, as we all know. So I'm going to steer away from Howard, who's not going to get 100% of the carries. I think Lindsey will today. Also have Mac, concerned about him, but I can sit him for a Cohen or Chubb. So Chris, Mac's going to play. The last report I saw was he's definitely going to play, and I don't think you could sit him against the Raiders. The Raiders are just a terrible team right now, complete disarray. The Khalil Mack trade set it off, and now Gruden is basically running his own front office within the front office in that organization. That's a mess, totally dysfunctional. So I would actually play Mack. Chubb's a good one too. I think this is a good matchup for Chubb against Pittsburgh. Got to remember something. Pittsburgh simply cannot defend. They have not been the same team since Shazier went out last year with that terrible injury. They haven't been the same. Their secondary hasn't been the same. Joe Hayden hasn't been as good. Their linebackers obviously are less effective without Shazier there. I don't mind Chubb, but of those three, Mack, Chubb, and Cohen, I like Mack the best. What are you thinking about the Bears game with the line +7 now that Mack and Robinson are out? Well, they're not an underdog by 7. If it's 6.5 as they're a favorite, they're a favorite against the Jets at home. I still like the Bears in this one because again, who are the Jets? The Jets are so banged up in the secondary that me, you, Aria, Tyrone, Ryan, Chris Lawson, and all these people can all go out there and basically play the secondary for the Jets. That's us banged up there. They still have a lot of talent in Taylor Gabriel. Trey Burton, we know what he did in the Super Bowl and how he's played so far this season for the Bears. They got Cohen, who they could line up wide. Anthony Miller, I think, is going to have another opportunity here. They still have Kevin White, who's a first-round talent who just can't stay healthy. I think they're going to win this game, and the reason they're resting Mack is they're comfortable about putting the rest of their defense out there against the Jets team that really has no backup running back because Bilal Powell's out for the year with that neck injury. They have no receivers with Anderson out, and Kearse has been their number one, and a rookie quarterback on the road in Chicago. So I would still take the Bears in this game. I don't think it's a question. And look, I know I'm a Jets hater, but I actually don't mind the Bears in this game, even with Robinson and Mack out. They are favored, yeah. Chris, not a problem, my friend. Happy to help. Any more questions, obviously, continue to dump them into the comment section here. We have about 35 minutes before we get to game time, so we got plenty more time for more thoughts. Oh, I don't know why, but my ESPN app here is all funky. I guess there's 2 minutes left now with the Eagles driving. 2-minute warning. So sorry if I said that they were 36 seconds off. That's my screen here said. So you got Tyrone, sleeper tight end for today. I love Azuma. Give me Azuma all day against that terrible Tampa Bay defense. He scored last week. I think Dalton and those boys put up over 30. I think Green, Mixon, Boyd, Uzoma, big plays today all over the field. That Tampa defense can't stop anybody. At the same time, because I think the Bengals will be putting up points, I think on the other end, Jameis is going to have to come out throwing again. Chuck the ball 50, 55 times. So to me, what does that mean? That means more opportunity for Brate and O.J. Howard. We don't know what Deshaun Jackson's going to do because he's a knucklehead. He wants to get out. So is he going to really give any effort? Are they going to play him? Or are they going to showcase him maybe for a trade? We don't know. So one of those three guys are the guys that I would probably take. Edelman or Baldwin, half-point PPR. Brian, great question. As I mentioned at the start of the show, I previewed my waiver wire video and start-sit video. I actually don't love Baldwin this week, just because of the matchup in Detroit, but I do like him over Edelman. Edelman, I think, is going to get a handful of catches, but he's not going to be the target monster that Baldwin is. I can't see Russell Wilson having another one of those weeks like a couple weeks ago where Baldwin really wasn't featured. I think he'll get his. I think there are safer options out there. Edelman's not one of them. I think with Gronk back, with White there, and this is going to be a throwing game for the Pats because they have really no, hard-nosed running back. I think with Gronk, with Gordon, with Hogan, with White, I think Edelman kind of gets lost in the shuffle here. He did score last week, so there's that. But give me Baldwin. He's just a better receiver. He's somewhat healthy. Indoors, not in Buffalo in the elements. Whatever those elements are, it might just be really freezing tomorrow night, but we'll see. Now Carson Wentz is kneeling the ball, so we might be getting closer to our cover. Weather concerns to adjust lineups such as in Chicago and Cincinnati. You know what? I don't think it's at the point yet that we're going to start adjusting lineups, especially in a place like Cincinnati. I could show you the Tyler Boyd video from a couple weeks ago. They played in a rainstorm against Pittsburgh, if you remember, where the Pittsburgh Steelers, I almost said the Penguins, the Pittsburgh Steelers came down the field and won that game late. Tyler Boyd had 2 touchdowns in the game. Dalton was able to still throw the ball. They're used to playing in those elements, both of those teams. Tampa Bay is one of those teams, and that's why I wouldn't play Winston as much, playing up there in Cincinnati. Why I would downgrade a guy like Mike Evans potentially this week. But those tight ends are the safety nets, right? If it is raining, if they're down, he's going to have to throw the ball short and not go deep to a guy like Deshaun Jackson or Mike Evans. So I would be down on those guys. In terms of Chicago, doesn't really bother me. I'm not really playing many of those guys. If anything, it's Isaiah Crowell who might get the majority of the carries today for the Jets. They obviously get the red zone carries without Bilal Powell there. The Bears, and I said this before, Mitch Trubisky is someone I'm benching anyway. So I'm benching him. If I have Burton in yearly, I'm going to play Burton. Gabriel's a sneaky play as a flex guy this week without Robinson there, but there's really not much fantasy impact there for me. There's not a lot of guys there that I love. I guess I would have played the Bears defense potentially against the Jets if Mac was there, but I'll steer clear of them for now. But that's a really good question in terms of weather, because as we know, as we get further into it, and the Eagles have won 24-18, and it has been reported that Blake Bortles will not be on the team charter on the way home because they can't look at him anymore, and their season effectively over at 3-5. Tough break for you, Jalen Ramsey. Let's answer some post-game questions about how you have now lost 4 or 5 in a row. You could tell that I'm not a fan of Jalen Ramsey and that team. But keep the questions coming. We do have about a half hour left. Scott and Howie, I know that you guys are out there. Marshall, you're out there. Definitely jump in and ask some questions. We'll go through the last few picks here. We have the Rams minus 9.5 against the Packers. I just don't see how the Packers are going to be able to stop Goff and that crew. I think Rodgers might have a backdoor cover here with a late touchdown to get them within 8 or 9. I just don't see it happening. I like the Vikings at home. They're an underdog at home against the Saints again. They did it last year. They pulled off that miracle, and they have a better quarterback now than they did last year. Kirk Cousins has been outstanding. Latavius Murray is healthy, and he's running really well. Thielen is playing at an all-pro level. He's certainly the best receiver in fantasy right now, so give me him and the Vikings. And the Pats tomorrow, minus 12. Look, I just can't see how Derek Anderson is going to keep this game close. I think the Pats, they are going to get tuned up and healthy for that game next Sunday night, which is obviously the battle between Rodgers and Brady. I just think that's going to be an epic showdown. Those are 2 of my favorite quarterbacks. They're my son's 2 favorite quarterbacks. We're going to be glued to the TV for that one. I think that they try to rest up, especially on a short week now against Rodgers. I can see this as one of those games where they're going to pull some of their guys out in the fourth quarter if they're a big. And I know Belichick doesn't really do it, but on a short week against a terrible Bills team. And remember, there's that hostility from last year. Remember that Gronk penalty where he got suspended that week for that terrible forearm shiver. There's bad blood there between the Pats and the Bills, and the Bills are probably out for blood in this one, especially if they lose and they're down big. I think Belichick is going to try to get those guys off the field. Chuck, good morning, my friend. How's everything? Brian, another question. Crabtree or Baldwin? Great question. I think Crabtree is a tougher matchup against Carolina. I recommended him last week, and it was John Brown that did the job. I guess I'm going to go with Baldwin. I think he's going to get the majority of the targets there. I like David Moore, actually, of Seattle in the red zone. But overall, give me Baldwin. I think Crabtree is a great player. I think that, obviously, they did a really good job of actually giving Flacco weapons this year, obviously with Snead and Crabtree and John Brown. I think that that's the problem, is that there's too many guys to feed there. So give me Baldwin, who's probably going to see the majority of the targets from Russell Wilson. Who else is he going to really trust in that offense right now? I mean, Tyler Lockett's a good player, but he's more of a deep threat than anything else. Carlos, good morning again. Hope all's well with you. And I just wanted to give another plug and a thank you to all the members of the fantasy community that are helping us get this out and the word out for the show today. We have the fantasy football guys, so Mike and Jeff, thank you. We have another one of my buddies out there going for 2, Jeff Lambert. Thank you for having us post, and we're going to continue to work with you guys moving forward. Really looking forward to it. The guys at Candid Sports, check them out. They're great. Drafters, we're going to work with these guys as well. Zach at Drafters, we'll be in touch. We'll get that rolling here so we could obviously spread the wealth. And again, my goal here with everyone in the community is to just get everyone ready for the week. I'm here throughout the week, so what we want you to do also is go to Phantom Sports' forum page. So go to facebook.com/watch Phantom, look for the fantasy forum, and join. You'll get all of my content there throughout the week. You got Waiver Wired, which is always on Mondays. We'll be there. You got Stardom Situm midweek. You got NFL picks, college picks, breaking news throughout the week, and quick fantasy analysis. We did that with Amari Cooper early this week, so you were able to potentially get him off your waiver wire and see where you would want to slot him in. Some of the breaking news. You could also catch me on Instagram or on Facebook throughout the week. I'm always available, always to answer questions. Always just send me a direct message. Happy to do so. I also plug the rankings. Usually it's the top 12 rankings for quarterback, wide receiver, running back, either Friday or Saturday. And I do fantasy basketball too, so if you guys love fantasy basketball, check it out. But fantasyfootballforum.com will take you right to the forum. Join us, you get all the content, it's free. You get me 24/7. So that's a big thing that I wanted to share with everybody. What are your thoughts and expectations for Nick Chubb? And then Aria, I'll get back to you too. I like Chubb today, and I have been very high on him. Him and Michelle were a dynamic running back duo in Georgia, obviously during their college careers. I'm just going to go up here real quick. Here we go. So for me, Chubb is I like Chubb a lot today. Good matchup against Pittsburgh. Remember, Carlos Hyde had a really good week 1 against Pittsburgh. He found the end zone. That was with Tyrod Taylor at cornerback. Obviously, Baker Mayfield's going to spread things around. I think Njoku's developed into that really dangerous weapon for Cleveland, so it's going to open things up for Chubb. He got it going in the second half last week. They traded Carlos Hyde for a reason. He's the future there. And Pittsburgh has never been successful this season in really stopping anyone's opposing offense, unless you're a terrible team. Atlanta, Kansas City, Baltimore, all these teams went in there, and they haven't been playing well at home. Even Cleveland put up 21 in week 1 in that tie. I like Chubb today a lot. Luck or Dalton? I love Dalton today. As much as I like Luck, the only reason I'm going to go Dalton is at home against literally the worst pass defense in the league. I think Luck, though, last week, you saw what happened there, too. Marlon Mack went for over 150 yards. If he has another one of those games against the Raiders, that's entirely possible. I think Luck won't throw as much as he has to because I think they'll have the lead. I think Dalton, though, at home, even with no John Ross, who's always banged up, I like him here. I'm playing him in my streaming position for DFS, so that's my 2 cents right there. Eric, good morning. I hope all's well. Love your last name with the thingy, Bob, over the love it. Who should I start in standard? Jameis Winston at Cincinnati or Drew Brees in Minnesota? Okay, Breeze, and here's why. You play your studs. We know that the Minnesota secondary has been shaky this year in many of their matchups. Last week they did a decent job against Sam Darnold, but again, what receivers are out there for the Jets at this point? Robbie Anderson's banged up. Anun was out. Jermaine Kearse got 0 targets. It's Drew Brees. He's a Hall of Famer. He's indoors. I just think Jameis Winston, especially if there's weather concerns in Cincinnati right now, which someone had mentioned there are, I just don't trust Winston. He's going to give you a couple turnovers each and every week. I think this is a bad matchup for Mike Evans. I think it's a bad matchup for Winston. You don't know what you're going to get at the running back position. Peyton Barber had been a major disappointment until last week. Jones found the end zone last week. I just got to go with the Hall of Famer in Drew Brees. So that's my 2 cents on that one. Definitely keep the questions coming with 25 more minutes before kickoff. No other real news yet that I've seen here come through. The Eagles did beat the Jaguars, covered the spread, so we're 1-0 with our game picks as well. Blake Bortles, here's the recap on Blake Bortles. Completed 24 of 41, 286 and a touchdown. I'm not impressed. 286 again, with garbage time yardage, not impressed. They lost again. I am very intrigued, and Mike, one of our colleagues over at the Football Alliance, you mentioned Derek Carr earlier. Wouldn't shock me, and I know they came out this morning and said that he's going to be the future of that team at quarterback. I don't see it. I just don't see how they're going to keep him. They're doing a full rebuild. They just got rid of their best offensive player, for crying out loud. And Marshawn Lynch, they got to move on from him. He's banged up. And I don't think Doug Martin's the answer, and neither is Jalen Richard. So why not just blow the whole thing up, call the Jaguars, and see if they want to take Derek Carr? I think that's my 2 cents. Eric, of course, any more questions, certainly hit us up. I'm happy to answer them because that's what this show is really all about. We'll go through our top stories here. Again, the Rams looking to stay perfect against the Packers. I think it's just going to be too much Todd Gurley. No running game to speak of from the Packers. I just really think at this point that the Rams are headed to the Super Bowl unless they happen to get slowed up here. They lose a game like to the Chiefs. And the only way I see them losing and not making the Super Bowl is if they have to go to New Orleans for the NFC title game. That's how I see them not making the Super Bowl. Then speaking of the Saints, this was the play of the year last year to me. Game-changing, season-changing play here from Stephon Diggs at the buzzer in that divisional round game. I think the Vikings get him again today. Better quarterback. Latavius Murray's running really well. Who's going to stop this dynamic Vikings duo on the Saints? I just don't see it. So give me the Vikings to win again. And as we just mentioned, I think at this point the Giants, anyone on that roster outside of OBJ and Saquon Barkley should be eligible for a trade. They're talking about trading Janoris Jenkins. That would be a really interesting pickup for a team like the Pats. I want them to go out and get him. I think Evan Ingram's a valuable tight end with all this team's injuries. Maybe they get a pick for him. I know that that's kind of blasphemy considering how high they drafted him. They're not going to trade Eli. I don't think anyone's going to take that cap hit. Maybe someone takes Olivier Vernon, who's been banged up in and out of the lineup all season. Then you got the Raiders. I mean, they're just a mess. It wouldn't shock me if they tried to trade Jordy Nelson simply because of the fact that he's been producing and teams could always use a good wide receiver. Ray, you brought this up earlier. Jordy Nelson is an interesting name. I thought the Patriots were going to go after him after he left Green Bay, and they didn't. They decided to not go in that direction. We see what happened. They ended up getting Josh Gordon, which was a great move for me, in my opinion. So maybe Jordy Nelson is the next one out in Oakland. So again, stock up for these guys. I think Cooper and Nelson are the big winners of that trade. I think John Brown showed me last week that he's really become a true number one receiver in this league. I think getting out of Arizona where their quarterback situation was a mess, their offensive situation was a mess. We all saw that with Mike McCoy being let go last week. I think now that he's in Baltimore as a trusted deep weapon for Flacco, and that's what he does best. He can throw the ball deep. I like John Brown, moving forward. And we mentioned, obviously, Philip Lindsay. But Chuck and Carlos and anyone out there who still has questions, we have a bunch of time left with about 20 minutes left. Oh, I'm sorry if Deo, we didn't get to your question, but I think we did. Vance McDonald or Kyle Rudolph or Evan Ingram. I actually like, who did I say there? We said, who do we pick? I don't know. We're going to get back to it. Heard Giants are shopping Landon Collins. Think we could pick up. Okay. This is not fantasy football, real football. The Giants, first of all, are never going to trade you Landon Collins. We know that because they hate the Cowboys. But would you actually trade the defensive captain who's probably the best player on that defense? I just don't see. That's the one guy that I could not see them dealing. He appears on local radio in New York on the biggest station here every week. He's a stand-up guy. He's your big play guy. Unless some team is going to give you a 1 and a 3 or a 1 and a 2 next year, I don't see Landon Collins going anywhere. Can I see a team like the Pats making a move like that? Maybe. Let's see how they play this week. Can I see a team like the Chiefs doing it? That's the team that I actually would be really interested to see because they got to think that they got this year where they're going to have to try to get home field advantage because I don't think the Pats are going to go into Kansas City and win. I don't think the Chargers are going to. I know they did this already. Where the Chiefs won in LA. I just can't see the Chargers going in there and winning. So if they get home field, I think they're going to the Super Bowl. We'll see. I think that's a team that's very interesting to see there. Just broke that the Mets are hiring a new general manager. It's Jacob deGrom's agent. I know breaking news here. I mean, that's not a big deal. Do I start Kerryon Johnson or Nick Chubb? Mark, thanks for joining us. I appreciate it. I'll go Kerryon Johnson. I think this guy has been really explosive, and you got to like what you see from this guy. And the reason I actually like him in this spot is think about this. No Theo Riddick this week, again, for the Lions. And we saw what happened last week, over 150 yards. He was really, really good. And I think the Seahawks, who are not the Legion of Boom anymore, they're going to be concentrating on stopping that trio of receivers in Golladay, Tate, and Jones. That opens things up for a guy like him. So I like him. He's at home. He's been running really, really hard. And, he's a very talented running back. I like Chubb, just not as much. I think Chubb's matchup on the road is tough against Pittsburgh. I think Kerryon Johnson finds the end zone this week. I think he goes over 100 again. So, Mark, that's my thought there for your question. And going back to the Giants and and Landon Collins. I think that if I had to predict it right now and who gets traded before the trade deadline at this point, I would think that a guy like Janoris Jenkins for the Giants will be traded. Outside of him, I really don't see anyone else that is really out there. Maybe Olivier Vernon if the Giants, want to take that cap hit potentially, but I think that that's a really risky play. He's been banged up a lot this season. We'll see. I think that most of the teams have done their trading. I think after this week, though, and after today, teams will then start to realize, okay, we're in it, we're out of it. The other thing to remember, and Mike, our buddy at Football Alliance, mentioned Derek Carr to Jacksonville as a nice fit. Are the Jaguars thinking, though, that this year they're going to actually be in it? I know that Carr could be long-term, but where are the guys that are maybe free agents at the end of the year on Jacksonville? Could they potentially become a seller all of a sudden? They got receivers. They have Dede. They have Moncrief. They have Keelan Cole. Maybe someone needs a third receiver. Dallas is a decent option for those guys. Cleveland's an option for those guys. I think those are guys that you have to look at here on the trade market. Devontae Parker's another name I would certainly think could be on that trade market. After his breakout performance last week against the Texans, they've been looking to trade him. So those are the type of guys that I see moving over the next couple of days. Maybe a running back. I think the Pats could use a running back. Obviously, the Chiefs are going to look to try to load up potentially on defense to get a couple of guys there. So that's my thought. And Justin, good morning, my friend. Haven't spoken to you in a few years. Congratulations on the engagement, my friend. Drop me some questions. Mark, my pleasure. This is what we're here for. Happy to help. Christian, good morning. I don't know you as much as well. I know Justin here, but got questions. We got answers, so come on in. We can roll through some of the top stories again right now. We got the Rams, but I want to go to this real quick. Deshaun Jackson's requested a trade from Tampa Bay. We'll see if that actually happens. He has that huge salary number. I could see a team that's desperate going after him. I think Cleveland's a good fit. They need another receiver. I could even see the Pats if, Araya was talking before in our chat about a receiver that they could go for. Why not Deshaun Jackson? He's another game breaker, speedster, but they have Cordell Patterson, who I think is very, very similar in that regard. You got tension in Cleveland, and this kind of ties in to what I was just mentioning. Todd Haley's on the hot seat already in Cleveland. They haven't really been able to take off like they thought they would with Baker Mayfield there. This is the second game now that they've had a really cake matchup. Last week it was against Tampa Bay. They lost. Now they get Pittsburgh and their terrible defense. We'll see how they do. They've developed Njoku really well, but Landry's been good one week, bad the next week. I think Haley's on the hot seat. You got Joey Bosa not close to returning for the Chargers. I actually think that's a really good thing for them. They're winning tons of games without him. Give him another week of rest. Give him another 2 weeks, 3 weeks of rest. Maybe he comes back for the stretch drive and is healthier than ever. I love it for him. The Bills, for whatever reason, are not going to trade or listen to offers for LaShawn McCoy. It makes no sense to me. Simply because he's aging. He's getting over 30. They're terrible. Why not trade him for an asset? He's not going to be their long-term answer when they are good at, when they're good moving forward. He's not going to be their running back. Someone else will be there. I don't understand why they wouldn't trade him. We talked about this a lot. Derek Carr is the long-term answer. That's what the people in Oakland have said. I doubt it, and I don't believe it. I think they're just talking him up as a franchise quarterback, so a team like Jacksonville then go out and get it. And Will Fuller, big news earlier this week, out for the year. And that's why I like Devontae Parker, who's really a good compromise. If you're going to go out there and look for a receiver like Houston, I think would probably do, because I don't see them going forward this year with Kike Kute as their second wide receiver, especially since he's been banged up a little bit, and really just have DeAndre Hopkins. They've gotten Lamar Miller going now. That's because Fuller was healthy, because Watson's gotten healthier, obviously coming back from the injury, and Hopkins. I think they need to make a move here for receiver. I think the division's there for them to win. I don't think this is a hard division for them to win, but they're not going to go into New England or Kansas City or LA and win a playoff game this year unless they address that wide receiver position. So that's my two thoughts there. G, it's always a pleasure. Cowboys are going to the Super Bowl. G, you're out of your freaking mind, but I love you. So have a good one. Good luck. Next week, Cowboys are off this week, but good luck with your fantasy team this week, G. I appreciate it. Start Mostert even with Breida playing. No, Wes, I wouldn't. And here's where the beauty of this show is. If you have other options, Wes, that are on your waiver wire or on your bench, dump them into the comment section, and we'll pick someone else for you. Breida is not 100%. He's going to play. What that means to me is he's going to test it out, just like last week. He played a few snaps, and then Mostert came in. But can you really trust this Mostert guy week after week? I mean, he had a good week last week. He certainly did. He was a good waiver wire pickup this week, but there's got to be someone that's either going to get the majority of the snaps or has a bigger upside than Mostert or Breida this week. So put those in the thing. Marlon Mack at Oakland, Kerry Johnson for Seattle, or Nick Chubb, Pittsburgh. Wow. Eric, that's a fantastic problem to have, and if I had your problem, I actually would be really excited about it, because to me, you got three guys that I think are all solid options today. I love Marlon Mack coming off that 150-yard game last week. I love Chubb against Pittsburgh, and I love Kerryon Johnson against Seattle. For me, it's down to Kerryon Johnson and Mack. Here's why. The Raiders' rush defense is terrible. They're one of the worst in the league. I don't think they're going to be able to sustain any pressure on Andrew Luck. Obviously, without Khalil Mack there, I think Marlon Mack is probably there, and they're going to have a huge day. And Kerryon Johnson, remember, no Theo Riddick. He's going to catch balls out of the backfield this week. I think he's going to have a huge day at home against a Seattle defense that isn't the Legion of Boom anymore. So the difference between Mack and Johnson to me this week is really not going to be that much. I would say 4 to 5 points at max one way or another. I could see it going either way. You got to remember something with Marlon Mack moving forward is they do have Nyheim Hines, who they like out of the backfield. So third downs, he may come out a little bit. Is Kerryon Johnson going to really come out that much for Detroit because they have no Riddick, who's their third down back, and really the only time he's going to come out is potentially in short yardage with Blunt. So I actually would go Kerryon Johnson over Mack this week, but I don't think you can go wrong in either one. Love it. So, Justin, as I said, congrats. If you have questions for us, jump in here. And again, I want to give a pop again to some of our great partners that we're with out here on the web. I love those guys, Mike and Jeff over at the Fantasy Alliance, the Fantasy Football page. They run a great ship over there. Great to be partnered with those guys. Also, Jeff Lambert over at Going for Two in the Fantasy Football Connect site. And we're going to do a lot more work with these guys. And if you ever want to get content put on our page, which is Phantom Sports, the Fantasy Forum, just reach out to me. I'd love to see what you got going on. We love to promote other people and see where we could build relationships in terms of content. Our audience loves content. They love interacting with it, whether it's videos, dialogue between who we want to start and pick up. And remember, join the Phantom Forum group. I'll accept you. You'll come right in for free. We'll let you in, and we'll be on our way in terms of continuing to build is actually a really nice and growing group of people out there out on the internet. So continue to do so and join phantomfootballforum.com. So let's continue to go. We got 13 minutes before kickoff. A handful of folks are still out there. I see a handful of people still here. So let's keep it going. We got some time. Anyone else have questions out there? Let me see some guys that we wanted to bench today. I don't think we got here yet. But Doug Baldwin is a name that I mentioned earlier. I don't love him. I think he's going to be the center attraction for how the Lions are going to try to stop the Seahawks today. I think he'll get his targets. Don't love him. I love him against other wide receivers in comparison that are not going to see as many targets. I just don't see him having a huge game because I think the Lions are going to try to key on him. Wes, have Eckler on bye and Royce out. Calvin Benjamin on bench. Booker worth a look. No. I mean, that's the problem. Wes, we gotta dig deeper. Because you're obviously not going to play Royce, he's out. You're obviously not going to play Eckler, he's on a bye. You're obviously not going to play Benjamin because he stinks, and Derek Anderson is his quarterback. And you're not going to play Booker because Lindsey's going to have a huge day today. I guess if you're going to play Breida or Mostert, you got to play Mostert because he's healthy. I can't roster and put a guy out on the field if I know that, A, he's going to have limited snaps, that at any point he's going to go out. And that's what happened last week with Breida, and that's why I'm really down on him. The guy has a huge opportunity this year with McKinnon out for the season, and he had a really good start to the season. He was leading the league in rushing after a few weeks. But I'm going to play the guy that's healthier, and it might close the game. If Breida goes out there and his snap count runs out in the second, third quarter, Mostert's going to close the game. I also think Breida, just like last week, is one bad run and one bad turn away from being out for the rest of the game. So Mostert's my guy there. I am down on Cam Newton this week. I think he's going to have a rough week. I thought he was going to have a rough week last week against Philly. He actually played pretty well. I think Baltimore's defense is a lot better, and I think they're going to come after Newton. Very interesting stat for Cam Newton today. Baltimore Ravens against the opposing quarterback this year have only allowed 8 touchdowns and 5 picks. To me, that screams Cam Newton mistake game. 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. No touchdowns, 2 interceptions. I don't trust Cam Newton. I know he gets you points with his legs. There's safer options out there today, most likely. You got Cobb and Allison coming back for the Packers against the Rams. What are we going to expect from these two guys? Cobb has been terrible all season. I actually kept him in 1 week because I actually thought as a late-round guy he'd be a good weapon for Rodgers. He hasn't done so. He's missed some time. I like Allison if I had to play one of the two. I love Valdez-Scantling, actually. He's been really good for the games that they missed, so I'm actually kind of upset that they're coming back. But again, if the Packers lose today, which I think we all think they will against the Rams, what about Allison? What about Scantling? And what about Cobb as potential trade targets for a wide receiver? I think they'd love to keep Allison and Scantling given their contract situation and that Allison's more explosive right now than Cobb. But maybe Cobb gets some bites out there. Who knows? I know they were trying to trade him
before the season started. Okay, another one. Jared Cook or O.J. Howard? Eric, this is a great question. I mean, you're stud with the questions this morning. Keep them coming. I like Jared Cook, and here's why. Indianapolis cannot defend the tight end. They can't defend the pass. And with Cooper gone, those targets are going to go somewhere. I think they're going to go to Nelson, and they're going to go to Cook. Cook is already developed to be a top 5 tight end this year with Derek Carr. I love O.J. Howard against Cincinnati because I think they're playing from behind. But there's a weather concern in Cincinnati, and the fact that he splits the share of the targets with Cameron Brate worries me as well. Think about who the better quarterback is as well. I like Derek Carr a lot more than Jameis Winston. Cook's proven week in and week out to be a really solid tight end, so give me Jared Cook, and I actually don't think it's close. Mark, is David Johnson an every week starter now? Yes. In DFS, I would say no. It's an interesting conversation with last night with somebody about David Johnson being a starter week in and week out. To me, he is if you own him in yearly, or in a keeper league, because you drafted him really high or kept him. I think, let's see, though, how Byron Leftwich, uses him this week against San Francisco. He said that he's going to use him a lot more like he was used last year before Mike McCoy really kind of screwed that up this year. So I'm going to trust David Johnson as being a yearly guy. I don't mind playing him. And the thing is, you got to play your studs. Like, he's a big name. Is he going to stink for the entire season? I doubt it. I think he's going to figure it out. I think Leftwich will figure it out. I wouldn't be so quick to use him in DFS today because I want to see him. You can have better, safer options there with guys that are certainly available to play. I like James Conner, obviously, as a name. I like Barkley this week. There are guys out there. But for me, I trust David Johnson. Eric, no problem, my friend. Ari, good to see you. I can't bet against the Cowboys this week, so I'm sure you're thrilled about that. We talked a lot about Amari Cooper and his impact on the Cowboys moving forward, which I actually like a lot. I think the move made sense because you're basically trading your first-round pick next year for Amari Cooper. I know he's a huge salary number, but I think it's a risk they had to take. They see that they have a shot to win the division in the NFC East, especially the Eagles didn't look great today. They won, they covered. I don't think they look great. Washington's Washington. They've got Alex Smith. So I think they see the opportunity there to potentially make the playoffs, maybe potentially win the division. So I actually like the move from Dallas's point of view. And I think Cooper is going to be rejuvenated there. He was in a terrible situation in Oakland. They obviously didn't want him there. They wanted to trade him. Now he goes to a team that wants him, and it's the Dallas Cowboys. I think he's going to have a really solid end to the season. Some other guys, the last name on this list of guys to potentially bench this week is Michael Crabtree against the Panthers. And I just don't love the matchup for Baltimore in this game. I don't like either quarterback in this game. If I had to pick one, I'd actually go Flacco because I just think he's a more accurate guy right now than Newton, and I don't love Newton against that Ravens defense. We gave you that statistic a few minutes ago. Ravens have allowed only 8 touchdowns to opposing quarterbacks and gotten 5 interceptions. That screams to me like a Cam Newton type of game. Very similar to that Super Bowl game against Denver, where he got beaten up and he lost his drive. He didn't go for that fumble in the fourth quarter. I think this is one of those games, a letdown game off a high of that huge comeback against Philly. I think Baltimore is actually going to win that game. Mike, Leftwich is a holdover from previous day of Arians' project. Yeah, and we all know how well Arians kind of did as a coordinator and a coach. I think he's a really good offensive mind. He's a terrible broadcaster. If you've heard him, you want to turn the channel on mute or actually put in the closed captioning for crying out loud. But he's a really good brain and a really good head coach. And Leftwich was a big time player when he was when he was in the league. He was halfway decent. Obviously in college he was sensational. So if he's going to tell me that he's going to get back to using David Johnson the way he used him in the past, I love to hear that. I think that they're just in a very awkward position where they just need more talent around him. They got Christian Kirk. I like him a lot. I know, Mike, you know him really well from the draft stuff that you do. He's a big-time player, but Rosen's playing like a rookie. Their offensive line's terrible. They have no tight end to speak of. Larry Fitzgerald's at the end of his career. So for me, that's why I just am not as high on David Johnson right now. I think eventually this season they'll figure it out and he'll get back into it. Coral, yeah, exactly. Cards O-line is still poop. You love that poop emoji, Mike. I love it. And it gave another pop to those guys. So Mike and Jeff over at the Football Alliance, guys do tremendous work. Can't wait to see their work as we get closer and closer to the draft. Check those guys out. And the Going for Two guys, Jeff Lambert and that crew, Fantasy Football Connect, thank you for promoting us on your pages as well. We'll get into that more next week. Everything NFL and Fantasy Football, that page. The Dynasty Nerds guys. We also have Candid Sports. Thank you guys as well. So it's been a real pleasure today. We got about 5 minutes, so any more last-minute questions, let's get those in. We want to obviously get those out before everyone has to finally set their lineups and click the OK. And as I do every week, actually, I'm going to pull up somewhere. We'll do it right now. I'm going to pull up my DFS lineup for you guys real quick, kind of give you some thoughts on where I'm going today in terms of my DraftKings lineup and my FanDuel lineup. We'll do that right now as we get through to the end here. Upcoming. Here we go. So DraftKings, here's my lineup. So for all you guys to try to take my money. Dalton, love that matchup against Tampa. Got Kareem Hunt. He's been heavily involved in that offense. I think they decimate Denver today. Got Lindsey, who we talked about. AJ Green, who we talked a lot about. Curse, I love him as my third receiver against Chicago. Robbie Anderson out, Enunwa out. Who's going to catch the ball? Adam Thielen, best receiver in football. Njoku against Pittsburgh. Got Humphreys against Cincinnati. I'm taking a flyer on this guy. Someone's got to catch the ball for Winston. Humphreys is a very cheap option there. And the Steelers against Cleveland. I just think that's a decent matchup to have. Then we'll go over to FanDuel real quick. This is with me and my buddies from college that I don't see often. We love those guys. Syracuse bowl eligible. Finally, 5 years. They beat NC State last night. We're going back to a bowl game. Thank goodness. That'll be fun. So you'll hear a lot of similar names here. Dalton, Lindsey, Hunt, Green, Thielen, Taylor Gabriel. I mentioned him with Allen Robinson out. Njoku, Jordy Nelson. Love him. More targets in Arizona. Because, again, I don't know what I'm getting from that Cleveland running game. From the San Francisco running game with Breida, not healthy, and Mostert. So I took a chance on the Cardinals. It'll probably backfire, but I figure they'll give us some points. I think they'll turn them over a little bit. Jordan Howard or Gabriel standard flex. Give me Gabriel, Tim. I think that's it's a scary one because of the fact that Howard's a stud number one running back. I think Tariq Cohen though is going to take over a lot this week for the Bears and get some points. I like Gabriel filling in, especially with Allen Robinson out this week. I don't think Anthony Miller's ready to do that. I think Gabriel and Miller are the big winners here. So I think Gabriel's going to get involved. And remember something: the Jets secondary is decimated with injuries and they're terrible. Even when Buster Skrine's out there healthy, he's one of the least effective cornerbacks in defensive backs in the league. So Taylor Gabriel, I think, is going to have a really nice bounce back game. So go with him moving forward. But again, thank you to everyone for joining. We got about 3 minutes left. Happy to take your questions. You can always find me throughout the week. PhantomFootballForum.com. Join us, and we are happy to answer your questions. Join it. We'll accept you. Come in. You got waiver wired videos on Monday. You got Stardom Situm midweek. You got picks throughout the week. You got rankings throughout the week. You got our expert picks, the Phantom team. Myself, Ari, who I know is here, TJ, and Josh. We give you our picks throughout the week. I'm 1-0. I know I took the Eagles earlier. So we got all that throughout the week, and we're actually going to start adding even more content in. So some of our partners and friends on the internet, we're going to get everyone into the forum, just going to promote everyone. We're going to have this. And again, if you like basketball stuff, we do basketball stuff, and baseball, especially in the spring. We're going to get to that stuff as well. So keep the questions coming if you have any more. 2 minutes left. I think we're in a really good spot here. I'm really happy. Today's show went really well. I'm really happy with all the questions. We had some really good questions. I'm checking it out though. Nothing else really coming in here. Here we go. So yeah, we got about a minute left. Anyone got any more questions? We got Tim. We got Eric. Ari. You got any questions, bud? You didn't send me any this morning, so if you got any real quick, happy to help. So we're about 2 minutes away. And we'll just go over the top stories real quick. We got tension in Cleveland. We'll see how that plays out today as they take on Pittsburgh. Fuller out for the year. That's an interesting one. Deshaun Jackson wanting out of Tampa Bay. But plenty more to come. Looking forward to the games today. I like the Rams big today. I like the Pats big tomorrow. I like the Browns to cover against Pittsburgh on the road. I think that's an interesting one. I like Cincinnati only giving 4. Love that game. And the latest report I heard from the Little Cardinals game out there, 13-0. The Little Cardinals have moved to 5-0. That will be my little guy, Jake. I heard he had a couple nice tackles there. 13-0. The Cardinals are in first place. Haven't allowed a point since week 1. What a great job by the Cardinals. Big shout out there to anyone watching in Cardinals land that just got off the field. He's now on his way to soccer. So for all of us at Phantom Sports, again, check us out throughout the week. The Fantasy Forum on the Phantom page. You got the link here below. Come find us. We'll give you more content throughout the week. It's always a pleasure. Should I drop Marvin Jones for Traquan Smith or Chris Godwin standard? No. Keep Marvin Jones. He's great. If you could get someone else, get Traquan Smith. Don't worry about Chris Godwin. That's us signing off for the day. Tim, find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, whatever you want. I'm all over the place. DraftKings tomorrow. DraftKings throughout the week. You'll find me there on the Sweat, 6 o'clock Eastern on their app, on Facebook, everywhere. Thanks to all of our partners. Have a good day. Enjoy the action.